like as far as this WhatsApp is concerned, and been trying combination how to make a book, this. But this is for panelists to rather discuss on it, find a way of it. Before I hand over to our moderator, Dr. Pranami Bhattacharya, I'd like to thank you once again for taking time out to be a part of the night of this forum. And like last AGM also, I had said that this is one place, 8 states. We got more than 300 and 30, 350 tribes and sub-tribes. This, of course, has got their main major like language and sub-language, because we got major tribes and sub-tribes and all. Every tribe or sub-tribe have got their own folk tales, own stories. You can imagine. We got maybe like lakhs and lakhs of material out here. It's a veritable treasure house out there, and we got enough of writers, very talented writers and poets also. It's now only the thing left is how to market it properly, and how to go about it. And of course, publication is always a challenge nowadays. I think I hand over to you, Pranami, to take over the start of the webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, once again. I would again like to welcome all of you, respected panelists and dear members and participants. So, keeping it crisp, let me begin it this way. I remember reading this quote quite some time back, and when I was thinking about how to start this webinar, I thought I should quote it. So this is by George Bernard Shaw. And he said, "I finished my book 76 years ago. I offered it to every publisher on the English-speaking earth I had ever heard of. Their refusals were unanimous, and it did not get into print until 50 years later. And now publishers would publish anything that had my name on it." So this quote, I believe, can be broken into two parts. The first half, with full of rejections or pursuits, would be so me and so many of us all around the world. And the second part would be relatable, by those who have written, received rejections, and have gone on to overcome that with long strides of persistence and hard work. Some of them are here with us today as panelists or maybe as members also in this webinar. So this entire process is an art, a craft, and if we want to look at it that way, which involves the writer and the publisher alike. So today we have gathered for this very interesting discussion, deliberation on this craft of publishing with speakers who represent both sides of it. So we are very glad to have amongst us Mr. Premankar Goswami, who is an associate publisher at Penguin Random House, India, with more than a decade-long experience in India's publishing scenario. He loves ideating and experimenting in publishing. That's lovely, isn't it? Something that readers and writers would definitely expect. I think now more than ever, maybe. In January 2019, he was named the Editor of the Year by the Publishing Next. Mr. Goswami, welcome to Northeast Writers Forum. We look forward to some very interesting insights from you in the next 1 hour of our deliberation.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just avoid Mr. No, it's so overwhelming.
Okay. Okay, right. So, very elated to have Dr. Easterin Kiri in the panel. Excited to be conversing with you again, ma'am, virtually though this time. Dr. Kiri is a Naga novelist and writer of short stories and children's books. She passed high school from the Baptist High School, Kohima, and completed a bachelor's and master's degree at Northeastern Hill University. She has a doctoral degree from Pune University. She has worked for the government of Nagaland as an editor in the public relations department, after which she taught at Nehu and Nagaland University for 18 years. She is a founder member of the publishing company Bach Weaver, based in Norway. She was awarded the Free Word Prize by Catalan Pen in 2013, the Hindu Literature for Life Prize in 2015, the Tata Lit Live Book of the Year in 2017, and the Sahitya Bal Puraskar in 2018. Ma'am, welcome you once again to the forum. We are joined by poet, writer, and translator, Miss Malsomi Jacob. A hearty welcome to you again, ma'am. Miss Jacob is a bilingual poet and writer and has translated short pieces between Mizo language and English. She has published 10 books in different genres like poetry, short story, children's fiction, narrative, non-fiction, and one novel titled Zarami, a redemption song. She has also contributed poems, stories, and articles to several publications and co-edited two anthologies. Earlier, she had taught English to undergraduates in Bangalore and Aizawl and was a senior coordinator with Sparrow, that is, Sound and Picture Archives for Research on Women, Mumbai, and freelanced as a journalist with the Assam Tribune and Northeast Frontier magazine in Guwahati, and more recently with the Statesman, Kolkata. She now lives in Bangalore, trying to concentrate on fiction and poetry. Spiraling down a generation, we have Miss Subi Taba with us, who is already going places with her pen and desk. Subi is a poet and short story writer from Arunachal Pradesh. She was awarded 100 Inspiring Authors of India Award in 2018 for her debut poetry book, Dear Bohemian Man. Her short story, A Night with the Tiger, won the New Asian Writing Short Story Prize 2020. Her short story, The Lost Village, won a third prize in the International Literary Contest on Nature, and another short story, The Last Priest, has been shortlisted for the Twist and Twain Short Story Prize 2021. Her poems and short stories are published in various anthologies. She is a recipient of the South Asia Speaks 2021 Fellowship Program. She attended Nagaland University, where she pursued Masters in Vegetable Science. She works as an agricultural development officer in Arunachal Pradesh. She is currently working on a first short story collection. Welcome, all of you, once again.
Thank you.
So, like I said, keeping it crisp, let me start with Primanka. So the first thing that I would like to put across is, we can see your impressive years of experience in the industry. So from where you stand, the vantage point that you have over all of us, maybe from, in this particular perspective. So what milestone do you see the book industry in India at present? And is it the writers, their writings, do you see it as a homogeneous canvas, or are there regional, expressions and incarnations in the entire gamut of writing that comes out of India?
So thank you, Pranami, and thank you so much, for inviting me to this session. And I really feel great that, I'm part of this panel, among those writers who I really admire and love. I really look up to, their writings. Read Esterin's books, and, I have a shelf book of, full of her books. So it's an honor. Thank you so much. So to begin with, I think that, India's publishing industry has undergone a major change in last 15 years, because I am in publishing for last 15 years. Prior to directly, I'm working as a publisher for last 15 years. Prior to that, I was working more like an associate, as a kind of a trainee when I was doing my masters and was writing my dissertation. Thanks to social media, now even if one is not publishing a print book, one can always bring her books, writings out through social media or blog or something else. And it continues to change, and we have seen that after the pandemic, from 2020 to 2021, people's reading habit has again changed. But as an editor, and now I have to look at two parts of publishing, which is actually rather challenging, because I have to look at the creative part of it, which is very exciting for me as an editor, because at the my core is I'm an editor. But when I work as a publisher, I also have to look at the commercial viability of my books. So at times, we come across books which are amazingly brilliant. Uh, but, as a team, we collectively feel that, the book won't do that great in the market. And when there is a low print run of a book, it means that the book will get less oxygen, marketing initiatives, sales. So all these things, less shelf space. And also, I understood one thing. And, my journey in publishing is quite accidental, actually. I was a consultant, I completed my education. I completed my master's and dissertation, and then I went to a hardcore corporate job, and then I gave it up to become a publisher. Because, for me, it's a kind of a mission driven thing that, I need to play the role of a catalyst to bring out certain narratives. But the reality is very different. So I feel that, this is one thing people are largely reading books that are good from a very utilitarian point of view. Maybe, books on self-help, management, and all these things. So as a publisher, I feel that we'll have to make an effort almost every day, and this is not an easy job. Uh, is that you make an effort to champion literary writings, a good fiction, or a work of good non-fiction, a nice memoir, and we need to take the ownership to champion these books. So if I look at the publishing scenario overall, what kind of books are or which regions are getting prominence? Well, people are immensely interested to know about Kashmir, writings on Kashmir, or for example, non-fiction is doing amazingly good. I look after non-fiction for Penguin largely, and I also do fiction. But non-fiction has an assured market overall compared to fiction. But we saw that this year Gitanjali Shri, our book, got the Booker, and we saw the power of a good novel, and this is one of the bestsellers, which is overwhelming for all of us. And we see that after Gitanjali Shri got the Booker Prize, there is immense interest in translation or the writings from Indian languages to English, because we are not exposed to too many languages. So this is broadly how it is at this point.
All right. Okay. I uh, I get it. So the market forces definitely, like you said, from what you said, I feel, it kind of keeps definitely changing. The trends keep on changing. So I have even heard this from other people that we have invited for webinars from the forum earlier, like Preeti Gill or people like them, that nonfiction definitely somehow looms large over fiction or is currently doing so. But like the current Booker Prize that we have seen, so a good piece of writing can actually do wonders. And we do have so many from notice, but then uh, we would definitely come to that part later. We'll regarding the marketing and different, after writing, what we need to do, even though we write a good piece, but what we need to do maybe after that. So we'll come back to that. I really, really loved it when you said, you wanted to be a catalyst to bring out certain narratives. So, having that view as a publisher, it's very nice to hear from for I mean us as a reader, sorry, as a writer. It's very nice to hear as a a publisher having this motto or this viewpoint. Yeah. So thank you for those opening remarks, Ramanka. And I would now like to come to one of the writers amongst us, uh, Dr. Kire. I would like to come to you, ma'am, from being a writer to establishing a publishing company. You have had a major share of this voyage in this industry. So tell us about this riveting journey of yours from one point to the other, as you kept on giving us, your readers, some amazing reads. I'm myself involved in writing some research papers currently, couple of, actually, two research papers on your works right now. Some scholars have also joined who are working on your works. So we would love to hear this entire journey of yours.
Yeah, Pranami. I hope you can hear me
Yes,
properly.
ma'am.
The
Yes.
reason why I look as though I'm from Star Wars is because I need the microphone on this piece. Um, it's um, it's not that big a publishing house that we have. That's the first correction that I need to make. And it started off a little ambitiously. 2009, I was very interested in collecting folk tales and hoped to do uh, a series of volume after volume of Naga folk tales. But it's still, after the first volume, we're sort of grounded because there hasn't been enough time, and then other writers keep saying they're not ready, they're not ready. So we're not giving up on that dream, but that's how it started, collaborating with another publisher here and just sort of kickstarted Park Beaver. But it's a lot of work, and it's so we've limited ourselves in many ways, and because one of the main hindrances is distribution, marketing. Nobody has a time for that because we're not publishers. So, but there've been very interesting lessons along the way. One is, and I think this is the biggest lesson for me, what you have in your heart. If you have a book on your heart, and if it's not getting to the publishing table of mainstream publishers, just be foolhardy enough to publish. And when we did that, after like about 10 years, one of the books is doing so well. It's bought up every year by schools in Indore and Hyderabad, I think, and Pune and some places else in India. So that that book is really paying us back. So things like that happen, and it's an exciting journey. Then another book that we did was I had a book with HarperCollins, but they failed to reprint. So we took the rights back and reprinted that ourselves because we wanted. It had become a textbook in some of the colleges and schools, so we made sure it reached them. So that has also earned us income. But it's not just about getting income, getting books sold. It's about being proved right. Follow your heart, and follow your heart, and many times it's the best path to follow.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for letting us know. I mean, even though you uh, would not like it to call it a kind of a real kind of a publishing house, but then the I would still like to take it that way because you have done what you had to do, and books are out there. They are being loved and they are being read, which otherwise would have just been, somewhere out there in a corner, and we would not have, maybe come across that. And like you said, there were books on your heart, and they were not getting into the table of the mainstream publishers. So this kind of brings Sylvia Plath's quote to my mind that nothing stinks like a pile of unpublished writing. So yes, I think like this is an age where instead of seeking publishers, we must mainstream publishers will always remain. I mean, it's that kind of publishing remains, but then we should do our bit in whatever we can, in whatever way we can. Like even Primanka also initially said that, writing can be out there in various ways, blogs and stuffs like that. So we can, we must, and I really, I'm very happy that, ma'am, you have done that. And I hope Bach Weaver, I hope to see it going, reaching zenith, and coming out with lot more wonderful books. So, and now I would like to go to another author who is amongst us, uh, Miss Jacob. Ma'am, I believe everybody writes to being read and loved. Everybody would, like to write for that. So you have so far 10 books in diverse genres to your credit. And I'm sure this ride must have been tremendously drilling and edifying, as it is for maybe everyone else who has covered this space of time in this industry. So, may I request you to share some of your experiences with us so that the aspiring writers, there are many in the Northeast Writers Forum itself and all over the world, I'm sure, even I'm one of those. So that we all of us can understand the nuances that they're required most to survive, to stand up and be there for so long in the industry. Ma'am, can you please unmute yourself?
Keeps happening.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
ma'am, it just
I
Ma'am, I think you have again muted by mistake.
Huh?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Yeah, done.
so sorry. I don't know how I did that. Yeah. I'm a late starter, and I remember during the 1980s, we used to go to that Guwahati book fair, the annual book fair there used to be. Uh, it was a really wonderful experience. We used to take our children, and I used to see a lot of Easterins books. But I was still not writing, not publishing at the time. So it was quite late that I started, and I actually started with my publishing with the newspaper Assam Tribune and Northeast Frontier and all those things, and that was a very beautiful thing to do. I really enjoyed that, and of course, poetry. I've been writing since high school, and Mizo poems I started only in college somehow. But these used to be published in school magazine, college magazine, and all, and that was about it. And meanwhile, staying home, I used to really enjoy reading Mitra Phokan's Sentinel. I don't know whether you guys did it also. Sentinel Middle. Yeah, I used to really enjoy that. Yeah, and then um, it was after around 2002 only that I started publishing in the newspaper and other things. In 2003, my first book of poems, which is in Mizo language and some in English. They were not translation, but a totally different set of poems. I published it with the help of Mizoram uh, publication board with the financial help, and so that was the first thing that came out. And yeah, later collection of short stories and children's and all, it were published in Mumbai. Yeah, none of my books have been published by big publishing houses, I have to confess that. And my lone novel, Zorami, a redemption song, it is based on the Mizoram insurgency movement. And it had been in my heart for a long time, actually. In 2005 May, I went to Mizoram from Guwahati and did a research, talked to a lot of people, interviewed some who are involved in it, like James Dokuma, and I collected a lot of stories. But I started writing a little bit, but I couldn't. I couldn't continue. I couldn't complete it. And after we came back to Bangalore in 2000, it was in 2013. This guy, the Morph, who published my book, it's actually more or less an individual who started it along with a couple of friends. So he was an acquaintance and he had read some of my books earlier. So out of the blue, he invited me to write for his publishing house, which he had started maybe a few years back. So I told him about the novel which I have in my heart, but which I couldn't complete. Then he said, "Okay, let's work on that. I'll get you an editor." So with the help of the editor, we worked, and it got published. It was finished in 2015. It came out in 2015, and so how long it took, almost something like 10 years or more. uh, but I'm very happy about the reception of this. I mean, this was really something written from my heart, something, some burden that I had carried for ages. Since childhood, we used to hear about, though we were outside Mizoram, we used to hear a lot about the insurgency and the counter-insurgency things. So I really carried it quite a lot. So I'm relieved at at having brought it out, and I'm really thankful about it. And as for my other, uh, both of my poem collections are self-published, because and we haven't got any real professional publishers in the Mizo language yet. So authors in Mizo mostly have to do their self-publishing. And so that's about it. My collection of poems came out in 2017, which was brought out by Authors Press. And right now I'm working I'm working on a collection of short stories based all over the country and even elsewhere. So I hope it will be finished soon, and after that I'll have to look for a publisher. And yeah, that's about my journey. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I was just noting down some points. Like in my question, I put that the aspiring writers would love to learn some nuances, maybe from people like you who are much more seasoned than us. So the term that you used, the words that you used, late starter, really stuck. So we can start at any point of time, so we are never late. That is one. And 10 years you have given into one novel that you finally brought out. So I am myself currently working on a book. It's done. I finally, after 2 years, I got a publisher, and I cannot imagine, waiting so patiently, maybe for 10 years. But then when you said you waited for 10 years and finally it came out and you were so happy about it, it has given me, I wish I heard that uh, during those 2 years of my impatient wait to get a publisher.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, you needed to write regarding what's happening in Mizoram, being a Mizo yourself. So I think it's very important for us, kind of uh, people from there to write about that place, the insider's perspective, that which is very important, which Chinua Achebe felt that he needs to write about Africa, let people know the insider's perspective. Hence, he brought out Things Fall Apart, and which was kind of an answer to Conrad's Heart of Darkness, because world had seen Africa from that perspective for
Yeah.
a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I keep on telling my students also. So that's very commendable, ma'am, and I'm so happy that you finally did it. And Easterine, ma'am, this was her book also again came out from um, an endeavor like Bach Weaver, I believe, and hence such endeavors are so important, so important, I think, for all of us. And I think self-publishing is gaining a lot of momentum at present. And but then again, everyone would, deep inside their heart would love to have at least one publication from the what we call the mainstream publishing houses. So we would get to hear more about that from Primanka once again. Coming to Subi, um, so Subi, you are a master's in vegetable sciences.
Yes.
That was so interesting when I was going through your profile.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you have quite a few acclaimed works to your credit as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So, we would love to hear the story of an agricultural development officer turning pages after pages of grasping narratives.
Mm-hmm.
So, how have you fared this journey from desk to the bookstores with this background that you have?
Mm-hmm. Well, it may seem like an extreme change in career, but then my journey towards writing has always been intentional. I had always been writing a little on the side since my school days, but without proper guidance or any big ambitions of publishing. And after my high school, we because I was a science student, we have to give our entrance exams, and I got selected to study plant sciences, specifically bachelor in agriculture, which I did in Nagaland University. So when you are a 17-year-old kid, uh, belonging to a middle class family, you just go whichever college you get selected to. Uh, I would have preferred to study medicine maybe, but then no, that's too expensive for our parents. So that's the way I did my masters in vegetable. But I always found the art of writing very liberating and old fashioned and classy. And though I was doing my masters, I had always kept that as my hobby. And what I like about writing is how it is all about communication, about sharing stories, and how we can mold and design language to write about human experiences and human condition. That is one thing which I find truly remarkable about writing. So, and I was one of those kids who needed a proper job. So to provide myself roti kapra makan. So I always had that in mind that I have to get myself a proper job, and after getting a proper job, I will maybe give my full time to writing. So I started seriously writing only after I got proper job. So that's how my journey has been.
I just saw a message from Rashmi Narzariba. She said, "How sweetly put." Yes, you know, how sweetly you have put, in simple words, the
Mm-hmm.
struggles or the aspirations that you have been
Mm-hmm.
through. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, it's because of that you are here today in
Mm-hmm.
the panel along with all other eminent people,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to us.
Mm-hmm.
I know we are all ears to listen to you, how you have been through, and you have got quite a number of awards, in this
And you
short
know
journey
what?
that you have had. Yeah.
I did some poetry writing which got published in few anthologies within
Mm-hmm.
India, but I had never actually planned to write short story. I think it was during pandemic. I had a lot of free time. There was no office, so I actually started writing after joining some writing workshop. So in that workshop, I came to know that there are short story competitions also. Before that, I didn't know much, so I entered, and my first short story, which is published, by won that A Night with the Tiger won that award. So after that, I was thinking maybe I should write more, and that's how I started writing short stories. Before that, I was mostly writing on a longer manuscript, which I haven't finished yet. So that's how I got into short stories. Some of them are published, some I'm still writing, and I'm planning to, come up with a short story collection. Thanks to
Looking
the
forward to
pandemic.
the collection. Looking forward to the collection. In fact, uh, the pandemic has actually made us kind of reinvent or maybe find something new about ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
this has been good that you have found interest in short story now.
Mm-hmm.
So You have kind of diversified, opened up, your genres. That's nice.
Mhm.
And also, this just stuck to me because eco-criticism and ecofeminism, these are two areas which are so close to my heart now more than ever. I'm doing research on that. So, when I read your profile that you are a person who has done masters in vegetable sciences, I also saw some on Google Images. I saw a picture of yours. You are something related to vegetables being, kind of inorganic vegetables, some fight against that and all that. So if I'm not wrong, that's, I think your writings can actually, the background, with the background that you have, your
Mhm.
writings can actually take you to, look at this side, this genre actually too. You can
Mhm.
write, you can think about it, maybe eco-criticism,
Mhm.
eco-feminism, maybe it's already there. A
Mhm.
researcher just needs to find it out in your
Mhm.
writings. I would
Yeah,
definitely give it a
yeah.
look.
I did my MSc thesis on organic cultivation of
Uh,
cabbage in mid hills of Nagaland. So
that's so
maybe
interesting. Yeah.
that maybe that thesis or some publication related
Yes,
to
yes,
that you must have seen.
yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll
Thank
come
you.
back to you in a while.
Mm.
Coming to Premanko. So I'm making it a full circle now, the discussion. So, as we all understand, we all see that Northeast, with its enormous potential, uh, how much of this mainstream publishing, let me use the word mainstream again. So how much of this the canvas of the mainstream publishing do you see Northeast covering? And also from the other side of the desk, one that is diagonal to the writer's side, how do you see a bestseller coming, from this region? I would definitely like to see one very soon from this potent region.
So to begin with, Pranami, I am personally and ideologically against the word mainstream. Uh, Thing is that I would say that there are commercial publishing houses, trade publishing
Hmm, hmm,
houses,
hmm.
and there are publishing houses who don't who have a mission in mind, who only would focus on the experience of women, for example, or they would look at ecofeminism for that matter, or ecology for that matter. And truth be told, they are our conscience keepers, and we look up, I as a publisher, I look up to them. So this is one thing I would say that I would like to distinguish it like that. And since these trade publishing houses are multinational companies, we need to generate some revenue in order to make this business sustainable. So we need a few commercially very successful books in order to publish more and more literary titles, which are very important for all of us. So I very strongly believe in that. Secondly, I sincerely feel that when it comes to writing, there are plenty of excellent writings that sporadically happen. So and since I belong to the region, this part of India, I feel that we collectively need to think that how we can champion books. Perhaps we should look at 2 to 3 titles, because we cannot champion 50 books a year. We should look at it very incrementally. So look at this panel today. We are from various parts of Northeast. There are people who are probably not from Northeast, but we are speaking in English language, we are communicating in English language. That is very encouraging for me as a publisher, because uh, it's a very simple mathematics for me. There are about 5 crore people in the Northeast of India, and most of us are exposed to English language. And I was in Guwahati last week, and I spent some time and I just roamed around my college for some time, Cotton College, to just uh, soak in as much as I could, uh, because everything started from there. Our teachers inspired us, every day, and uh, till date, for me, it's the perennial source of inspiration. When I lack inspiration, I talk to my teachers at Cotton College, or I go to Cotton College. So I would say that let us identify 2 to 3 titles a year, uh, let us as a community be very ruthless in identifying those titles which we feel that we will be able to champion, and let's go absolutely full throttle. Let's reach out to the politicians. Let's reach out to the actors, thinkers, influencers on social media. Say that this is our story, because when I look at a book from Northeast, or I pitch a book to my seniors in the publishing house, I try to pass on that experience of frustrations, despair, failure, because we, you know, uh, I was, I was really, touched by what Subi said, because I come from a very small town of Assam, and the country ends there. Till date, there is no national level newspaper, but it feels great that we can overcome so many challenges and play a significant role in charting the intellectual map of the country, or the literary map of the country. So I think this should be a kind of a point of departure, and from there, if we start identifying 2 to 3 books a year, and if we just look at 10% conversion of this 5 crore people, which is 50 lakhs, let us become slightly more conservative. Let's look at 10% of this 50 lakhs, which is 5 lakhs. Imagine if we are able to sell 5 lakh copies in the northeast of India, then the book becomes a bestseller, like that. Why can't we think in that way? Let's think in that way. It will be difficult. It's an uphill task, and I am not saying this from the point of view of a publisher from Penguin. I would like to invite all of you to help me to champion these books, publish these books. To begin with, since all of you are here and you are so well known in the region, why don't we do a good anthology of the writings from the northeast of India? Let's do it. Let's identify the best of fiction and non-fiction, and I would love to take this forward. you know let's look at it like this. Let's look at, maybe, we can say that a region in focus, maybe Manipur, maybe Nagaland, maybe Mizoram, maybe Assam, or Sikkim, or Tripura. We can identify that, and let's consider this as a mission. When we think that it's the mission of my life, we will make it happen, no doubt, no matter what. Sorry. And it's idealistic, but all good things start when we are idealistic. We look at achieving the impossible. So I remember, I never studied in English medium school. I, throughout my life, I studied in till class 10. I studied in my mother tongue, and then I studied in a college, and then when I came to Cotton College, and it's actually equivalent to a temple for me, because it changed everything. It changed everything. I got exposed to a bigger Assamese society to begin with, then the entire northeast of India. I started traveling to Nagaland, Manipur, and I have friends everywhere. So this is amazing. And probably, this part of India is so diverse. Our food habit is diverse, our language is so different from each other, but yet there is a northeast pride, I feel, and I connect very meaningfully with the people here. So let us identify it, identify books like this. Let's proceed methodically, and let's clinically identify books and champion them. One book or 2 books or 3 books a year, because that's feasible practically. And if I can make a difference, I'm sure other publishing houses will also join. HarperCollins, for example, why not? Or for that matter, Ravi will join. I would like everyone to look at it, and let every publishing house champion 2 to 3 books. If that happens, then collectively we have 4 or 5 trade publishing houses in India. We will be able to promote 10 books a year, which means in 10 years, we are looking at 100 titles. Now imagine if you have 100 titles in your bookshelf, from the northeast of India. That's quite impressive. I'm sure that a pepper fry or an I know will give us a shelf for that. We can proudly showcase our book there.
Yeah, very wonderfully put. I mean, it's nice to, look at a situation that we are living in from somebody else's perspective. You have put in ideas of dreaming, idealizing. You have also done some mathematics, made us understand through some maths. This is wonderful. I am already so hopeful that, if maybe this is one way of maybe working things out, there may be many others, but yes, I'm really hopeful, and I've seen Rashmiba also, kind of getting excited about what you have said. She has just commented in the chat box. I'm sure, we would definitely come up with something. And like you said, you use the word diversity. So I think diversity is our strength. We are a kind of mini India in ourselves. So with so much of diversity, and why not one, two, or three titles a year? Like you said, we must and we can, I'm sure. We already have many established authors amongst ourselves, many aspiring ones, and all of us together.
Yeah,
Yes,
just to interject, I say
sure.
2 to 3 titles because Pranami, 2 to 3 titles I can manage,
I
because
understand, and that
I
is that is very reasonable. Yes,
yeah, yeah,
manageable, reasonable.
and
Hmm.
it's not at all difficult to identify 3 great
Hmm,
books
hmm,
from,
hmm.
and
Right,
you be my, all of you, can be my advisor here. That Ramanko, you should look at this, or you shouldn't look at this, publish this, and let us have discussions, and unless we have those discussions, I don't think, we can make progress. There will be books here and there, but when we start something, let's start with a bang.
right. I think the scene is changing. In fact, the editor from the publishing house who luckily, just somehow who accepted my book recently, he also talks in the same lines like you, trying to make a difference, going out of the box, not boxing ourselves, keeping ourselves tied up into restricted kind of thinking, genres and perspectives. And this is so nice. I'm really hopeful that, the scene is changing and changing fast. Definitely two, three, four, five, whatever number of, uh, good books up, hopefully bestsellers will definitely come up now, I think, more than ever. I'm very hopeful. So thank you for that. Coming back to Dr. Kire, ma'am, I use the word boxing ourselves, So from that, I would like to, take out a question, pick out a question. Like any industry has its set of rules, and very rightly so. It must be there. So, however, an industry that rests on the fluidity of the artistic minds, this industry called writing. So, do you find restricting boxing into decided rules, genres, or being labeled as something, being labeled as this and maybe not the other? This limits the artistic flair to reach the desired space. Do you feel so?
First, I must thank Primanka because that is so encouraging
Mm.
and inspiring.
Yes.
And and I must say, you're blasting stereotypes of what a publisher is from the mainland, a mainstream publisher. Because I'll come back to your question soon. I just have to say this. For us older writers, the experience that we've had with bigger publishers is that it's an industry, and we're never allowed to forget that publishing is an industry. So a book is a product, and then we feel very much the commodification of our books.
Mm.
It has to fit in, and then Pranami, it has to belong to a box. And I think a lot of Northeast writers resist that or struggle with that because we don't want to be put into a box. We're not, our books are not commodities, and we, the people, are not. So the commodification, we've been fighting that very, very much more than in other places, because there was a time when they only wanted writers from the Northeast to write about conflict and continue the Northeast is burning image. You all know about that. This is Northeast Writers Forum. This is home. I don't have to explain further. So things like that, or exoticizing us. And at present, we have another problem, and that is primitivizing us, primitivizing our books, because it's very easy for a reviewer who's not from the Northeast to say, oh, this is based on a folktale. This book is based on a folktale, and that is it. They expect anyone to understand that. Again, that is stereotyping us. So I keep resisting that, and I know many of the writers from the Northeast also keep doing that, resisting being labeled, being put into a box, being commodified, because that's so unfair to us. And there are many good things happening in India. For example, the flowering of literary festivals. That is good, but again, that comes with expectations, because it imposes something on the writer. It puts pressure on the writer, and suddenly glamour becomes part of, or is expected. The writer is expected to be glamorous. You can no longer step out with your jola bag or your kurta and sandals. That sort of image has to be kept at home. I think it's sad, isn't it? That part is not good. And yes, I want to say that there are some books out there that are not able to fit in, and they shouldn't. And I think many of the Northeast books belong to that category of not fitting in. And Priyanka, how lovely to have somebody from a publishing company who also agrees with that. I'll end with telling you about a friend who has written a beautiful, beautiful book for the soul. And it deserves to be published, it deserves to be read, and it really deserves to see the light of day. But he's gone from publisher to publisher, and nothing has happened. But I'm a dreamer, so I tell him, let's dream together. And I want to also say that I draw inspiration from the indie bookshops, because they've achieved a measure of success by the mottos that they live by. I was recently in Ukiyo in Imphal, Ukiyo bookstore, and Martin Tokchom, the owner of Ukiyo, said, not everything is about making money. Not everything is about making money. And Martin is 31, and it just sort of, wow, stops you in your tracks, that sort of wisdom. Then I loved it, loved Ukiyo. Bookman's in Gangtok. That's like my home in Gangtok, because Raman just came along to see the hotel where I'd been booked in, and he said, you can't stay here. Come on, we're going home. And he took me home, and he fed me, and I just stayed there for free. It was wonderful. Then the same thing not the same thing, but a similar kind of experience at Dock Ears in Goa, Margao, where we walked in, found some of my books, and then we got introduced, and it was such a homecoming experience in all these places. Walking book fairs in Bhubaneswar before they pulled down the old house, and they're doing something. They are doing something right. It's I don't think it's a formula as such, but they're just getting it right. And maybe these are the people we should go to find out what's the secret of their success. Yeah, Yeah, I should stop there. Give time to the others. Thank you.
I,
Ma'am, you
I,
should
I,
not.
I'd like to add one thing here. What
Yeah.
Estrin has said is so significant. And only one thing would work is that we should be relentless. We should be strongly believing in what we do, and we should continue to do. It really doesn't matter if one rejects our writings or and uh, and we need to be very passionate, because if we are passionate we will be able to pass on that kind of conviction to another person. And when we talk, let us reach out to the straight publishers, or for that matter anyone. Why a book from Kashmir becomes a hit no matter what, and as you have rightly said, is that we need a narrative, a non-fiction, which takes into consideration our civilizational past, our uh, I think magic and reality, they come together so effortlessly in this, from this part of India, because what is magic is probably real for us, and we see it every day. you know so I think that relentlessly and shamelessly we'll have to you know exert our work
Right.
no matter what.
Like all of us in all this discussion together that we have had so far, Ankha has so rightly put. I just saw a message in the text box that Eastern ma'am, let's dream together with a heart at the end. So I mean, yes, I think in one line, if we put this discussion that we are having today, it's just that let's dream together. So, and I think this is a moment that all of us today here, from this moment onwards, will start dreaming in the lines of what Primanko has said and what everyone else has said. And ma'am, but I would just like to point out one thing here, this thing that you told about primitivizing, stereotyping the Northeast. Uh, in the research circle, though, because I'm basically a researcher, so in the research circle, um, Professor Pradhani, head of the department, Nehu, he's also there in the uh, meeting today. So he would, I think, also vouch for this. That in the research circles, though, the return to the roots is gaining a lot of momentum all over the world, more so after the pandemic. So I have myself, had two papers already during these 2 years, and one book chapter coming up, which is all on, folk tales and folklores, not just of Northeast, but also, I was trying to focus on other parts of India also. So, ma'am, please keep writing books. All of you, in fact, all the panelists, I would request, the writers in the panel, keep writing on folklores, and it would really feed us. I don't know about publishers. I'm sure it will, really take the publishing industry also by storm, because this is the new normal, I think, which is coming up after the pandemic that we have seen, the returning to roots, uh, parallel kind of a life that we had almost forgotten is the new thing that we need to bring back. So this is from me as a researcher that I would just wanted to add here. So ma'am, please keep writing on folklores, and I would love to keep reading and reading on that. And coming back to, since Esterine ma'am would have to leave a little early, so I would, in just 5 to 10 minutes, we'll come back to addressing the questions, because I see some questions there for most of the panelists here. Um, Coming to Malsomi ma'am, you are, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
you are.
Okay, okay. So, ma'am, you are currently from your profile, I get it that you are currently into two diverse genres, fiction and poetry. So, do you think the industry receives different genres with different dispositions? How far do you think the market forces decide the locus of a particular genre? We have had a little bit of discussion maybe already on this, but I would like you to throw more light on that from your experience.
Uh, yeah, from it looks to me like poetry is the least favorite of publishers. Poetry doesn't sell, is what we keep hearing, right? Uh, so, and just recently, I just looked up on the internet to look for poetry book publishers, and what came out was all self-publishing. So that's the condition. But maybe fiction is doing a little better, and Premanka has clearly told us non-fiction is the present favorite. So yeah, unless you are really doing it from the heart, it's really, it's quite difficult to bring out poetry. And yeah, the recent ones, as I said, I've self-published them.
Right. Self-publishing. I think at the end of every question, every deliberation, we are coming back to this thing about self-publishing. So, on the one hand, which is definitely good, something new coming up, kind of, you do not have to wait for years and for the, again, let me use the word mainstream publishers to, to be reached out. But on the other hand, I think we also need to like dream together and do all the mathematics and everything suggested by Premanko and everyone else to, get to the mainstream publishers.
True.
Because, like Easterine ma'am said, not everything is about money making, which is definitely right. But then I think it is also important at the same time to be a bestseller, if not for money making, but at least for being heard, for making the insider's perspective. I would like to repeat again, for making the insider's perspective, be spread among everyone. And I have one question more for Subi. Subi, as a writer from the Northeast India, reaching out to the core of national publishing industry has been strenuous. That by now we have understood. So for long, so we don't know that if this for long, which is the weight that we can term as, is over yet. We do not know. We only decided to dream starting today, right? We have only decided to do that. But anyway, this has been a general feeling across the terrain of this country. So how would you like to engage with this sentiment? I mean, I would like to carry on a little more from your introductory remarks which you gave in the beginning.
This thing about Northeast writers getting into mainstream publishing, I feel it's if I had just to answer, it's a very broad topic which the reasons encompasses a lot of aspects. But as a single writer, I don't think I can give just a sordid statement, but I can share some of my observations. But before going into the pessimistic or dark side of Nordic writers not making it big in the mainstream, I feel like that any writer in this modern time, in anywhere in this world where the world is so closely connected with social media, and we can send our submissions with emails. Earlier it used to be we have to print out the manuscripts, and it was a bit difficult to connect to people across the world. So if a writer anywhere in the world, if he or she has a very good story script, I feel like they can be published anywhere in the world. That's what I feel genuinely. And when we talk about a notice, uh, just leave about the books in every aspect. If we see whether it be films, politics, music, we are always one step behind the mainland India. And if I question myself what could be the reasons, maybe it is the geographical reasons. We are more closer to East Asian countries. If we travel, we reach there earlier than we reach Delhi. So there is this geographical distance, and then there is marketing issues as well. When I was in my school, we hardly had a few writers from Arunachal,
Mhm.
and to get their books, there was no bookshop in my hometown, and to get a proper book also, we have to write that application in to the publishers. So that shows that the marketing of the local books in the bookshops, it was a bit poor in comparison to other bookshops in mainland India. And also most of the big publishing houses are based in states like places like Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata. And if we see most of the best selling writers in India, like Chetan Bhagat, Turjoy Datta and Amish Tripar, or the others, they are all either Delhi based or Mumbai based. So I feel like sometimes they have this crowd connection also with their region. Like if, for example, if Arunachal was the center of main publishing house in India, maybe Arunachali writers would have, had bigger book sales. That's what I feel. And also, there are different types of readerships. So. Um, and what I noticed about Northeast is that I might be wrong, but I feel like we don't have very hardworking writers. Uh, if I see people around me, very less of them are interested in writing, and only few are relentless enough to finish a manuscript and edit it, because just finishing a manuscript is never enough. If we want a good publisher, we have to maybe work on it for many years. So to have that kind of patience, you really have to love it, and you really have to give your whole dedication for that. So I feel like I haven't seen much of such people, at least around me. But we have a few writers, like we have Esterin Ma'am, whose books I have read during my college time in my formative years in Nagaland, and it's good. She has been kind of inspiration to me in the way she has, written about Naga voices and bringing out Naga experience in the whole of India. And also, I would like to name some few, like there are even writers like Janice Patriot from Meghalaya. I think she really has good writings, and she is doing really well. Maybe we can invite her in one of the next sessions, because
Definitely.
yeah, because one of her books is going to be published in the UK also this next year. And also Aruni Kashyap, he has been my mentor in the Southeast Asia Fellowship Program. So he's also very inspiring by the kind of short stories and novels that he has been writing. So these are the few writers, and even there was one more writer from Meghalaya, Dariba Lingdem, who was shortlisted for the JCB book award for her book Name, Place, Animal Thing. So there are a lot of good writers coming up who are doing well, having best-selling rank in the mainstream publishing, which is kind of encouraging for noticed writers like us. So to end your question, like Premanka had said, like one has to be relentless. So I truly believe that if you are relentless enough to carry out a pursuit in your life, then you'll make it. That's all I can say in the positive line.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much. Yeah.
Pranami, I just like to chip in. There have been a lot of questions accumulating out there, which I
Yes,
think we should be studying out there.
yes, yes.
But before you start with the question, just like to put up one observation which I just think. You see, in the Northwest, we don't have a dearth of writers and poets, good writers and poets. Which interestingly, most of our, writers or poets, their poems or the prose has been used in syllabuses in even all over India. I have seen it in say Bangalore, Maharashtra, and many places out there apart from Northeast. And in some of our earlier sessions, like when the top literary agents had said that nowadays, even Mita Kapoor had said that nowadays Northeast literature rather has become a genre in itself. I think the problem out here is basically marketing and making it, commercially viable, basically. I mean, like with the Kira ma'am out there. I mean, she is quite well known. Like not only in Northeast, she has been. I keep on seeing, like she has been invited for talks and all anywhere and everywhere all over. I mean, like India. So recognition and good work, there is no dirt of it. Somehow, I think we have been failing basically in making our rather the books bestseller commercially. I'm talking about commercially, the money of it, because still I believe very few could make it big in that way that they can what you can say, like do the I mean like have that livelihood only by writing basically. I don't still don't think there are still it is possible for at least here in the Northeast for most of us basically maybe 90-95% of us. So only you can be a poet and or a writer, like, and you can survive on that basically. So we need to actually think about how do we this thing. That what Priyanka said earlier, we had a long talk, like I said earlier, that regarding this, that with the amount of population in all the 8 states and all, if we do maybe particular marketing properly, yeah, we can easily make the book a bestseller. Then, of course, even the rest of India also. But how to go about it? Is only giving it in social media or because I've seen, that uh, book launches and all, it doesn't help you much because around 40, 50, 100 people out there, it doesn't help you much at all. It is the consistently, rather writing about, which I've seen Rasmi doing it with her book, the same of it, that consistently writing in social media, sharing it in WhatsApp. But is it only that or something else? I'd like to hear from, like Priyanka and that. And the Isran ma'am, like, in fact, you have been one of our, been like writers who stays, I mean, like abroad, internationally, and, like you are from here also. And you are so well connected with your hometown, you keep on coming back this thing. So you will be also one right person to give us a perspective of how to go about it. Priyanka, would you kindly start with this? And after that, Pranami, you can kindly start with the
Yes,
other.
yes. If ma'am has time, then ma'am, do we have say 5 minutes more with you?
Okay, okay. If you want me to go first, I can quickly say
Yes,
something
ma'am.
about that.
I would like you
Yeah,
to go first because you have to leave early, as I understand.
yeah. I can talk about the scene like in Kohima, Dimapur, where book readings, these are still very, very, very new. So people love it. And then there's a generation of readers that are very young, school and college kids. So we've had very successful book readings. That was one very successful way of reaching the audiences and getting books sold. And getting out to schools, getting out to colleges, that really works. So visibility is still so important. Visibility of the author is still so important for getting the book sold. And then people wait for reviews and are influenced by that. So these are the things that we've been doing, getting reviews out, then visiting. We have bookstore come cafe in Kohima, Dimapur. That's where these things take place. And also, colleges are very accommodating. They keep inviting writers back. So we use all these opportunities. Not sure if I answered your question properly, but these are the things that we do back in Kohima. That's what I wanted to get across. What
Thank
else
you.
were you asking, Pranami?
Ma'am, there is a direct question to you from
Mm-hmm.
the Professor Jyotima Pradhani, Nehu.
Yeah.
Can you enlighten us a bit with the story of your journey with Mari, which is one of the
Okay.
early book of fiction from Northeast to have been published by a major publication house, which was at the same time an absolutely unputdownable book?
Okay. That was based on the life of my aunt Murray, and signed up by HarperCollins. And what I did with her was, it's like almost all my adult life I had heard this story from her, because she really wanted it to be made into a book, and I wanted to write it. And then she showed me her diary, so I had her diary in my possession. Then I spent many summers with her. She, in my culture we have many mothers, as we say. So my biological mother is, of course, my mother, but her her sisters also became my mothers, and so Marie was one of my mothers, and she would tell me all about her life, so I could visualize her as a young girl experiencing war, experiencing separation from her parents and loved ones, and even experiencing death of her husband. So it was a story so close to me, so close to my heart, and it was to somebody, happening to somebody in the family, to my mother. So this is the journey. I kept taking notes, but I wrote it in Norway, very, very far away from Marie, who was living in Gurgaon at that time. So I had to keep phoning. My phone bill really, really was high those months. But I would write and then get stuck and need details, since this was a historical novel. So just calling her up, asking for details, both her and my mother, because my mom was 12, and so they had different memories. So just drawing on that memory bank, that's how the book got written.
Right.
Yeah, that's about it. Pranami, if I may
Yes.
go,
Yes.
thank you all so
Thank you.
much. It's been lovely to be here with all of you, and hope to meet you in some other place, some other
Thank you so much,
situation.
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am. Thank
Yeah,
you, ma'am.
Ma'am,
It was
yeah.
I'd just like to tell here that ma'am has a bereavement in the family, so she has to leave. But it's so nice of her that she has given us this 1.5 hours of her time. Um, Thank you, ma'am. We have really had some insightful comments and suggestions from you. We would keep all these things in mind, and we would definitely going back to the comment which we had some time back. We would really love to form a community and dream big and together from today
Lovely,
onwards.
lovely. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
ma'am. Thank you so
bye,
much.
Bye.
ma'am. Bye. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
Take care, Isri. Take care. Bye bye.
yeah. Thank you. I will.
However, we have a lineup of questions here for our rest of the panelists. I would like to take up this question now. It's from Ramona Kotur. She says, hello, panelists. I'm an Indian writer living in Paris. What are your plans for globalization with book fairs in Europe or the UK? How about Indian writers with a Northeast focus? So I think this question can be addressed by all three of you. Perhaps we can start with Primanka.
So, thank you. So, Dipanjal asked a question also, and I'm glad
Yes,
that
yes.
Ramona is here. Ramona is a friend. So, thanks for asking that question, and that was such a difficult question. I don't know whether I'll be able to answer that, but I'll make an attempt. Good to see you, Ramona. So, first of all, Dipanjal, can you just rephrase your question, because I'm not able to recall everything, because I was mesmerized by what how Estherine talks. She talks like it's so lyrical. So I was just listening to her, and okay, now I recall. Okay, I was in a trance. So, so to begin with, what Estherine said, I always, do two things. I'm very, very conscious of that. My tea comes from my homeland, my home state, Assam, and I get my coffee from Nagaland now. So Nagaland has a coffee culture now, which is amazing. And there are, I think, three coffee producers in Nagaland, which are really big. One is Nagaland Cafe, and there are two more. So my friends from Nagaland keep sending coffee. 1 kilo, that takes care of my 6 months here. And I sip a lot of coffee. So and when I was discussing this, and Nagaland coffee is again very different, it's very soothing. It's not your South American coffee. It's like you can feel the region there. It's so soothing, it's nice, and I feel very inspired. So to begin with, I think we should look at why can't we do a kind of a book walk in, say, Konoma village in Nagaland, or maybe why can't we do a book walk in and around Uzan Bazaar in Guwahati, for example. So I just or maybe we take it to Kharguli in Guwahati, those places. Let's really make reading an experience. So we did all these things. Rashmi is smiling because she is also a fellow Cottonian. I just got to know. So we did all these things when we were in Cotton. Experiment with literature, and I feel that people from the northeast of India, or for that matter West Bengal or from Kerala, they are very sincere about reading. Whether the book is a good book or not, you get to know if you are visiting Guwahati Book Fair or Kolkata Book Fair. They would just tell you, give you a kind of a critical evaluation of your book that you have published. So, and I think it's very important that we work closely with various administration, in various states, in Assam, for example, or in the rest of the 7 states. Why can't we look at setting up 8 cafes in 8 states, which would inculcate reading habit? I know that it's not very easy to penetrate each and every part of Northeast, but we can at least do it in the state capitals. It's not very difficult to do a nice, cafe in Guwahati or in, Aizawl or Kohima. And Kohima and Nagaland now has a very, very vibrant reading culture. It's amazing. So I think that, we should look at that aspect very, very seriously. And I feel that it's very difficult to scale it up at a global level, which Ramona has asked. But if we start, those incremental things, let's look at the state capitals to begin with. Let's reach out to a few you know uh, people who are in the reading habit and who have a popular presence in their day-to-day life. Let's take help from them, because it's a great cause to promote a book or to champion a book. It's a great thing. And that's why I said that 3 books. Then people are also busy these days, and pandemic has changed our lives like anything. So let's mark our block our calendars, that the way we celebrate Bihu, or the 15th of August. Let's identify 3 dates that we will only celebrate books on these 3 dates, and no matter what, unless we have a personal emergency or anything, we will be there. And I make it a point to visit Northeast very often. I can't work if I don't visit Northeast, honestly. So we'll have to think in that way. We need some people who will be our patrons. For example, Shakespeare had a lot of people who were, in a sense, sponsoring his writings. We know the Medici families. There are many people who and we just need to convince people. And my experience, after so many rejections, and I have faced, I realized that when you reach out to someone and sincerely seek help, generally everyone is very helpful. People will help. We just need to pass on our conviction. It's as simple as that. Rest will fall in place. We'll have to look at the distribution. That's very important for book publication. uh, and that's why in schools and colleges we'll have to encourage students to read what is not included in the syllabi, and ask them to become more of a kind of an explorer, what is not in the syllabus. And teachers will have to play a role here, that your grades actually don't matter after a point. So So, and I did that with a few friends, and my first cousin who is 16 years old, and he did incredibly well in the exams. Everyone was taken aback because, when they didn't see his name in the third division grade, they thought that he's failed, and he surprised everyone. In fact, he got, you know, he was a state topper this time in Assam. So, and I always encourage him to read what is not in the syllabus. So that's great. You need to, you need the faculty of imagination. That is dying. You know, in
Right.
Delhi, or what Subi was saying is that, and she was actually raising very important points. Why Delhi is the center? Yes, why Delhi is the center? Why Arunachal is not, or Itanagar, for example, not? Even why Itanagar should be the center of Arunachal Pradesh? There should be a different place in Arunachal Pradesh, which should be the capital of Arunachal Pradesh. So these are all radical ideas. But practically speaking, I feel that, small things, focus on the basic thing, the distribution. 100 books are there, and we need to champion those books very rigorously, and encourage people. So I think in Guwahati there was this spring festival of books for children. Poreshda was doing that festival, and I was a student then. That was really very encouraging, I found. So we need to do things, and learn from each other. Let's visit, Western Book Depot. Let's go to Kitab Ghor or Kitab Khana. You know, uh, Imran, Imdad, both of them are very enthusiastic about books. And one very interesting aspect of is that publishing is largely led by women. So almost all the publishers. So my publisher, I report to, and all the leading publishers are women, or very good bookshops are run by women. Storyteller, for example, in Kolkata is run by a woman. So we need to focus on those things. That it's not very easy when you have Amazon and Flipkarts and you can order the book and you get it in within a day or so. So we'll have to look at all these things. So Penguin, as an organization, we support brick and mortar shops. We reach out to them, and we work very closely with the bookshop owners. So these are various things, but and this is just a broad overview. But we can actually work on this much more clinically, one by one, and focus on disseminating the work better. So marketing is very important, and we need to take immense pride in our writing. We need to tell everyone that things don't slow down after you cross the river of Brahmaputra. No, it's not like that. That's the perception. We need to change. And I always encounter people. Someone said that, well, it doesn't seem that you are from Northeast. I said, what do you say? Don't essentialize us. So that's the perception. And what I think Estrin was saying is absolutely right. That exoticization and commodification, these things are there. We need to encounter them. We just can't be silent about all these things.
Absolutely. Right. Uh, we have a lineup of questions here. I was going through the questions. The questions in itself are a webinar. In themselves, they form a webinar altogether. There is a question from Minakshi Borkotoki. She asks, is it true that publishers prefer novels to short story collections? Question for Premanka. If yes, then how far will an anthology go? If you would like to
So
quickly
these are,
address that.
see, there is no direct answer to these things, And yes, conventionally, many people think that short stories often don't work. Uh, but look at Jhumpa Lahiri is an unaccustomed art. It's a collection of short stories that really work. So, well, fictions generally, are preferred by the publishers, but there is no bias about these things.
Mhm. Right. Uh, I understand that. Now, another question to you, Pramanka, is from Bhaskar Jyotilakar. He asks, as a publisher who represents a traditional publishing house, what are your predictions for the future of audiobooks and books in digital format?
So when pandemic hit us in 2020, we were not able to publish for good 4 5 months. Imagine, we were not able to publish anything, and Penguin brings out 240 to 250 books a year, and that's from our only India list, which we locally commission and publish. And we have this thing in Penguin that one new book a day, so we have a new book every day in Penguin. From there, for good 4 5 months, we were not able to publish anything. At that time, we saw that there was a spike in in Kindle and ebook and audiobook was picking up in a great way, especially in UK, US, not UK, US and Europe. I tried my best to start audiobooks. I took subscription, but I couldn't. I always fall asleep. When I start listening to an audiobook. In addition to Conrad's Heart of Darkness. So when I have insomnia, I just read 2 lines of Heart of Darkness and I fall asleep. So it's like that. So audiobooks and ebooks, uh, ebook audiobook was peaking at one point, but I don't think that it's doing so great now. I'll give you an example. I think in 2014-15, when ebook boom happened, Penguin was investing in a big way in developing state of the art warehouse, physical warehouse for stocking books. And if one of you are in Delhi, when you are in Delhi, I hope I'll meet you and I'll give you a tour of our warehouse in Delhi, which is an amazing place. Now you should see that books and books, and and how we take care of those books. It's quite a thing. We were investing globally in developing warehouses. So many people asked us that, in the days of ebook and audiobook, why are you investing in that? So we felt that historically people have a kind of a romantic connection with the book. You would love to, what do you do when you buy a new book? You smell the book, right? I do it when I get the first copy of a book. I smell the book. I don't know why I do it, but I saw others doing it, and I am hooked to it now. So and see, I think 2 to 3% of the total book business is your ebook and Kindle and Gobo and Google Books. I have a Kindle at home, but there is always a backlight, right? You don't fall asleep when you read a Kindle, right? The idea is that you start reading a book and you don't know when you fall asleep. So that should be the reading thing. Audiobook, I stop because I always have this apprehension that I will hit a car if I you know you know so some of my friends, and including very senior publishers, they told me that they use ebooks while they step out for a walk. But again, in India, it's not very, and if you are living in a city like Delhi or Bombay, wherein there is less empathy and compassion, unlike our part of India, you shouldn't actually listen to audiobook while walking or stepping out or something.
And with such a in such a crowded country, we might just not just while driving, even while walking, we might just hit
People do
anyone.
that, Pranavi.
Yeah.
People do that, but I'd love
Mhm.
to listen to an audiobook if I'm in Shillong or in say Kohima or in
Mhm.
Aizawl
Yeah, yeah.
or in Tuensang or Mon somewhere, but definitely not in Delhi or Bombay.
I understand. Haven't tried that though. There. Uh, Thank you so much, for that answer. Now, there are a lot of questions, I think, which have been more or less answered, by all of you in, different parts of your deliberations. So, if I may be excused for skipping a few questions, which I feel have been more or less answered, um, there is an interesting question from Shaheen Akhtar. She asks about the importance of a book cover. She says she has seen many people, kind of instantly buying a book. Like we say, don't judge a book by its cover, but then maybe people do judge a book by its cover, and then they instantly fall in love with the cover and buy it. That is what she says. So maybe we can have quick round of answer from you as a publisher, Primanko, and also maybe Subi and Masumi ma'am can also comment on that if they, what they do, while they're publishing a book of theirs, what they do, how they go about preparing their cover. So
I have
yes,
heard my voice for a long time. Let's understand what authors think about the cover. I will give my perspective.
okay, maybe we can listen to Masumi ma'am and Subi.
Okay, for the cover of my novel, it was designed by the publisher,
Mhm.
and yeah, and also whatever a publishing house published, they just designed it. I didn't really have too much say about it. But my latest book, which is a collection of poems in my mother tongue, which I have said, I had some kind of an idea because I wanted it to be uh, very kind of native. So I made a suggestion of what I wanted. And then as we were kind of working at my children, I have two grown up children who are living abroad, they stepped in and said, it has to be done by a professional designer. So they went ahead and found a designer, and all of us, all of us, four adults plus two, their spouses, six adults were doing the critical assessment of it after the designer did it, and we all agreed that's how we did it. And yeah, some spending was also there, but I think it's worth it giving it to a professional designer. We I just had some idea that I wanted and just gave it to him, and he did it. That's how we did. I had no real control over the other books which were done by the publishers. This is the self published one which I did.
Right. Okay. So, so that is about Masomi ma'am and Subi. How do you go about your covers?
I'll just say briefly. For my first book, Dear Bohemian Man, I had discussed with the publisher. I wanted, since the title was Dear Bohemian Man, I wanted some bohemian element in the book cover, and I wanted, since all the poems were feminine poems addressed to a bohemian man, so I wanted the book to be a bit feminine. So that was pink in color. And then since the word bohemian was there, I wanted something bohemian, so I told them to add this compass, a compass with a small world map, a blurry map in the background. So that's it as an author. But as a reader, I usually prefer books. When I go to a bookshop, I usually end up, I mean, getting more attracted to book covers which have
Mhm.
paintings or some cute illustrations, and
Right.
also
Absolutely.
book and name of the book. Like when I'm getting into a bookstore and when I have not known which book is selling, so I just go with my instinct, and book covers and book titles, I think they
Titles.
matters a lot for me.
Definitely it does. Yeah, they do. They do. Thank you. Premanko, now I would make you hear a voice again. So,
So book cover is a very important part of the publishing. So I have completed, briefing my covers, which I am going to publish in June next year. So I have planned my January to June in July. No, I completed it in June this year only. So
Okay.
we think very, very as editors, think very seriously about our covers because we get to read the book much before anyone, gets an
Hmm.
opportunity to read. And we start discussing this with the author in advance. At least in Penguin, we do that, and and every book requires, a very unique treatment. One is that, if you are looking at publishing an author over a period of time, say for example, if you publish someone like say Amitabh Ghosh, so you'll see that, in terms of the look of their books, they look alike because we use the same font, uh, you know, similar color palette, so that, they give them a kind of a unique, identity. There are books which are, already in the market, and we see a kind of a lull in their reception. What we at times do is that we do a new cover, so new cover often gives a new lease of life. Some books require, illustration. Some books look better only with typography. You don't need anything, just a, white background or an off-white background or a black background. Then if you use, I'm risking my life saying this because, I work very closely with the design team, so designers know it very well. But I just hope that my designer is not attending it, attending the session today. And we often have fights, editors and designers fight like anything. And this is only nothing personal. We just have two very different perspectives on the same thing, because designer would look at it purely from the point of view of its visual appeal, and designers also go through the book, but editor, goes through each and every line of the book. She reads the book, uh, and authors, comments, they collectively play a big role. I'll show you a few covers. For example, uh, we rehashed all Satyajit Ray's writings, last year. So look at this, Feluda book. So, it's just, it's a volume one. So we played with, this typography. Look at this. There is the spine, and we have also added an element here. If you also look at this, we have added an element here, on the half title page. Then another element here on the title page. Uh, then, so we try to give a very, very distinct look to each and every book that we bring out. It's also important to identify the appropriate paper for the cover of the book.
Right.
What would be the, grammage of that paper? Maybe 80 GSM or 100 GSM. Do you want a sheen on the cover, or you want just a matte
Matt.
finish?
Yeah.
Do you want to emboss the cover? So all these things, of course, you need to have budget for it. And every publisher works within a very limited budget, because paper is very, very expensive now. So in every 2-3 months, we see 10 to 15%, rise. And I always say this to everyone, that everyone wants a free book. I don't encourage anyone, buy a book, support the publisher. A book is 299 rupees mostly, you see. And I'm talking about, books which are which move fast, commercially, viable titles. Even if you look at it, when you buy a book from Amazon, if it's priced at 499 rupees after 18% of discount, you buy this at 280 rupees, which is much less than a piece of pizza. You finish pizza in 10 minutes, but the
Right.
book will be there in your shelf for 5 generations. So we need to even make book slightly more expensive, because, author has spent so much time, editor and the publishing company has invested so much marketing, producing, typesetting, and then disseminating. How can we make it sustainable? And very sadly, publishing is not an industry in India. Film is an industry, but the moment it gets the status of an industry, it will get a lot of incentives, support from the government. So that's why I feel that there should be a book movement, and we need to involve everyone: policymakers, politicians, thinkers, writers. Take everyone along and let's make them and imagine a society which doesn't have poetry, which doesn't have folklore, which doesn't have fiction. Even non-fiction can be written in the form of a fiction. I have just brought out a biography of George Fernandez. Probably it's one of the best biographies I have read in last 15, 20 years. So I asked this author that how do you write so well. He said that I do my research like a rigorous researcher, and I write like Gabriel Garcia Marquez. That's what I try to achieve. So even non-fiction has to be written in a great way that it's a story at the end of the way. So non-fiction is also a fiction with facts. You need to support it with facts. uh, and that's why you cannot bring out too many books. You can do one or two books, good books, very good books, and you should go full throttle.
Right. So, since we are running out of time, but I would maybe later after the webinar gets over, maybe today or maybe some other day, have a talk with you regarding this of non-fiction, which can also be written like a fiction. This is something, I have had recently I have had a kind of an serious debate or argument with another editor, I would say. I mean, of course, it ended up on a very fruitful note for me, though. I will have a discussion with you later. One more question maybe we can address here, which is by Firdausi Rahman. She asks, will it be good enough to publish a book of poems in three languages, like Assamese, Hindi, and English together? She asks. So, can this merger of languages be done in poetry book anthology?
Is it for me? Is this question for me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. In 2016, I started working with Ruskin Bond, and this is related to the question which she has asked. I realized that we need to do something new with the writings of Ruskin Bond. So my uh, you know uh, uh, question, kind of uh, what is the right word for this is introspection. I was introspecting that what we should do and how we can champion the reading culture. So I felt that unless you promote the idea of leisure, that you have time to sit down, relax, and have a cup of coffee, and don't do anything. It's very difficult in these days that you are always doing something. It's very difficult to slow down. So I reached out to Ruskin Bond, who is, just amazing. I said that, Ruskin, how do you write so much? And Ruskin doesn't have an email ID, and he doesn't have a cell phone. So the first question I asked, Ruskin, how would we communicate? And he was, I think, 84 at that time. He said, don't worry, Primanko, we are soulmates and we will communicate through clouds. And I started laughing, it was so good. And I gave him an idea and he immediately accepted. And we started working on a journal of how to do nothing, And both the books were well received, by the readers. And even our book, second journal, got an award. Uh, so we can look at one thing. Maybe we can look at doing some experiment. Imagine your book is in three languages: English, Hindi, and Assamese, you said, right? If I remember correctly.
Right.
Think about adding a lot of line drawings so that you have a kind of a visual representation of your work. On the facing page of the book, you have the original in Assamese. You do a translation of it in English, and then another in Devanagari. So that is possible. But sadly, it will have a very, very niche readership. If you do it in English translation, then it becomes easier, then one would identify this book as a work of translation from Assamese to English. So when we write anything, it's very important to identify who my reader is. And when you know who your reader is, then it's very easy to reach out to them in today's time, because you have social media, you have so many metrics. You can, you can influence, people through your writings, through your works. You can create short videos, reels, and young writers are so active on Instagram, for example. They are doing a lot. Facebook, Twitter. Facebook is for my generation, but Instagram is for people who are younger than me. They are doing amazingly well, and I get impressed by the work they do. So we'll have to identify whether we are writing for a bigger audience or a niche audience. So if I come across a book which I feel that will be more appropriate for scholars or teachers, I immediately direct that person to reach out to an academic publisher. And I have worked in an academic publishing house for 6 years, so I try to help them with that, because every book needs to be treated in a different way. You can't compare oranges and apples.
Right. So, and thank you for that answer. I think a very last question that I would like to take up is it was posted quite some time back. It's from Pankaj Giri. He's a member from the Sikkim chapter of Northeast Writers Forum. He asks, how do you read the success of a debut fiction book? Does it have to be either a national bestseller, say 10,000 copies sold, or be nominated for a prestigious award? Because there are certain books that blur the lines between commercial and literary fiction and might just sell a few thousand copies and not be nominated for an award. Would you give that writer a second chance? That question is again for you.
So yes, I think that literary awards are very important. They encourage writers, and see, I felt great when I got an award in 2019. And truth be told, I didn't know that in the very beginning. Later got to know. Uh, but we shouldn't depend on those things. They shouldn't determine our what we are going to do. So I started working in the publishing industry in 2008. I got the industry recognition after more than a decade. But in between, what I did is that I continued to publish, and I reached out to the senior publishers, uh, uh, my colleagues in the office who are senior to me, who have more experience, and all of them collectively just asked me to keep on working. Uh, Secondly, is that when there is a debut fiction, there is a possibility that it will not do exceedingly well commercially, because fiction globally is not doing so well now. uh, Many publishers are facing the problem, even in India. So after Gitanjali Shri got the Booker, all of a sudden people are interested in translation. So I think that we have a moment at this point, and we should collectively focus on making most out of it. The way if you remember when Arundhati Roy got Man Booker. So these things are great. We need things, and that's why we'll have to constantly write and publish. uh, let's understand that there are so many books. There are at least 5,000 books a year, and I'm very conservative here. If I look at the books all big publishing houses bring out every year, it will be collectively about 800 books. So from this 800,000 books, you need to stand out. So you can imagine how much you'll have to work. So I have learned one thing in last 15 years in publishing is that you will have to work very hard, uh, and and every day you will have to make an effort. And when you do that, 5 years down the line or 6 years down the line, you will see, things are getting more and more palpable. It will take time, you know. I think that, if you have the resources, you should, should take initiative. And again, when it comes to literary awards, you just have so many books, and you can make that many submissions. Even in a publishing house, if the organizers are asking for 10 books, publishers have 250 books, and every book is dear to me. I don't distinguish between book one or book two. Every author is important for me, every book is important for me, but I'll have to make a decision based on various parameters, that probably this book has more probability for getting a book, or a Hindu lit for life, things like that. Also, we need to see that how we can reach out to a slightly bigger world, through our channels, in Europe, for example, in the US, for example. Why can't we get the Guardian review of a book? We'll have to ask this question. The moment we ask this question, we will encounter problems, and when we encounter problems, we will try to find a solution. So first of all, we need to find more problems like this so that we can find a way out.
Right. Absolutely. At this point, what I feel maybe I would do, and maybe many others would. Like what Margaret Atwood had said, quotes keep on coming to my mind every now and then because I read a lot of quotes. So, she had said that publishing a book is like stuffing a note into a bottle and hurling it into the sea. Some bottles drown, some come safe to the land where notes are read and then possibly cherished. So, yes, we have to be relentless. We have to work really hard. We do have the potential, definitely. No denial about that. And I think we must just look up and ahead and keep going. I really apologize for leaving out some questions, even though I feel, directly or indirectly, they have been answered and touched upon by our panelists in their deliberation. So I would like to stop with the session, with the deliberation, and also the question and answer session. And I would like to. I had a wonderful time and learning a lot. And now I would like to hand over the session to dear Rashmi Narzariba for the vote of thanks. She is yet another melodious, lyrical speaker, and I would love to listen to her now.
Thank you very much, Pranami, and very good evening to all of you. I haven't had my say yet, so yeah, yes, very good evening before I say bye-bye. And thank you, Easterine, despite the bereavement and despite the time schedules, you still made it. Thank you, Pramanka, for such a good laugh I had and for the beautiful insights you had given us. And yes, probably I shouldn't be saying it on a platform like this, but yeah, I have to say it. You probably are one of those publishers with whom we could relate and who have so much of a feeling for the Northeast.
Right.
Maybe because you're from here, or maybe not, because it is not that you have to belong to some place to be part of it. It's not always like that. But yes, we could relate to you and relate to your dreams and your thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for giving your Saturday evenings. And most importantly, thank you, team, my team, Pranami, Dipanjal, Jackson, Bhaskar, Madhu, and thanks to each of you who have made it here. But we couldn't give you your tea and your coffee, but maybe some other time. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Northeast Writers Forum. Thank you, Subi. Thank you, Isreen. And thank you, Madam Malsami. It was so good to see all of you. Have a very, very blessed weekend. Let's dream our weekends away with books. See you all then. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
so
everyone.
much. Thank you, Prabhakar.
Have a good
Okay.
Bye
evening.
bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malsama. Thank you.